Howdy and welcome to Someone Should Know. I'm your host, Lydia Shock. Shout out to my girls, KTJ and Carly, for the kick-ass theme song. Thank you, ladies, for the support. I love y'all. Y'all go check out KTJ and Carly anywhere you stream your music. Their Instagram is at KTJ Carly. Go check them out. Those ladies are seriously so talented. I'll leave their plugs in the bio, so go check it out. Welcome to Someone Should Know. Thank you for tuning in to episode 1. I am so freaking nervous, you guys. My hands are sweating. My heart is palpitating. I'm nervous. It's it's scary putting your stuff out there on the internet into the ether and hoping that it's received well. But we're going to get more into why we're here, what possessed me to start this podcast, and what we can expect out of our time together. But first, let me get through some disclaimer stuff. I'm not going to do a disclaimer for every video, but for this first one, I did want to set the stage on what Someone Should Know is and what it is not. First of all, Someone Should Know is a show that explores challenging themes such as topics related to mental health and emotional resilience. Someone Should Know is intended only for mature audiences and viewer discretion is advised. Someone Should Know is not a replacement or a substitute for professional mental health. If you or someone you know is struggling with their mental health, please call 988 or seek a mental health professional in your area. So who the hell am I and why did I decide to start this podcast now? Well, my name is Lydia Shock. I am a 27-year-old Texan. I am happily married to the love of my life, Sean. He and I are trying to start our family together. We've been married for over 3 years now, and we've been together for almost 10. I am a creative at heart. I've been a creative my whole life. I started acting at the age of 5. I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz, and I've been performing ever since. I grew up doing theater and transitioned to film and TV when I was a teenager. I've studied acting for over 20 years now. I taught acting at an acting studio. I still do my own private acting coaching lessons. And yeah, being a creative is something that is just in my blood. I ended up going to college at the University of North Texas and studied media arts. So loved it. Hated school up until I went to college. It was not my thing. But once I got into college and I really started to come into my own as an individual and as a young adult and studying something that I actually gave a shit about, it really, changed the game for me. So I graduated in 2021 with my media arts degree. And at that time, COVID was going on and the entertainment industry was laying people off left and right. It, for all intents and purposes, was completely shut down at the time of my graduating. So that's kind of how I ended up in corporate America, funnily enough. And I do really enjoy it, but I missed the creative outlet a lot. And this podcast is something that I had been talking about and dreaming about for many, many years. And it was time this year to bring this dream to life and bring it into fruition. So a couple other things about who I am and why I feel at all qualified to talk about what we're going to be talking about on this podcast. I am a survivor of suicidal ideation and suicidal planning. When I was 16, I deeply struggled with my mental health, and I found myself in a depression that I truly didn't know if I was going to find my way out of. And yeah, I put myself into some seriously scary situations, but it all led me to here. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that here in just a second. But it has been 11 years since that time in my life where I deeply struggled and contemplated taking my own life. And in those 11 years, I have gone to a lot of therapy. I am an active goer of therapy still to this day. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I think everybody needs to go. I think everybody could take something out of going to therapy. I've done a lot of my own independent research as well, following other creators in the mental health and emotional resilience space, seeking out mentors that also really enjoy talking about this and the resources and tools that you can apply to your life to, help get you out of these dark nights, these dark seasons that we find ourselves in. And in those 11 years that I really focused on my mental growth and really started to work on myself, I found a passion for talking about this stuff. And I realized how important it is to talk about this stuff and how it truly can save people's lives. And emotional intelligence is crime prevention. It is suicide prevention. Having emotional intelligence is so much more than just being able to navigate a tough situation, but to be able to give those resources to others and help them navigate tough situations. So I've become really passionate in talking about this and in wanting to share it with others, which has led me to this podcast. And with that being said, let me tell you what I am not. I am not a therapist, nor do I ever claim to be a therapist or a mental health professional of any kind. You will never hear those words leave my mouth. I am literally just a girl. I am just a woman who has seen some seriously dark days in my life, and I have found tools and resources that have really helped me, that really changed my life, changed fundamentally who I am as a human being. I hardly even relate to that 16-year-old version of me because I feel so far removed from her. And that's all that I ever claim to be, is just a woman who has lived a lot of life, gathered resources and tools along the way, and now I want to share those tools and resources with you. So what is Someone Should Know, and what can you expect out of this podcast? My goal with Someone Should Know is to have honest and unfiltered conversations around a myriad of topics, but specifically focusing on those tools and resources to help grow in your mental health, to help grow in your emotional resilience, and to help make you feel like the most badass version of yourself navigating through this world. I intend to have different guests on this podcast, anywhere from mental health professionals, veterans. I have plans to speak to a veteran here soon who I know is probably listening to this episode. So hi, Ronnie, shout out. But I plan to bring on a veteran. We can talk about veterans' health, veterans' mental health, what we can do to better support our veterans coming out of the service. I want to talk to female health professionals such as OB-GYNs and other wellness professionals on female health and what we can do to help navigate female health and help mitigate, some of these things that we are seeing peak in our country, such as PCOS, infertility, things like that. I want to talk about whatever you guys want to know about. So feel free to leave me comments, to send me DMs on topics that you guys want to talk about. Ultimately, the goal of this show is to talk about a myriad of topics on anything that someone should know. I want to leave you with real life takeaways, tangible takeaways that you can apply to your life today. Real tools, real resources that you can apply today. We're going to talk about all kinds of things from, is happiness a choice? What does that look like? To, are you vilifying your mental health issues and using that as a weapon of why you shouldn't get better? We're going to talk about it. And like I said, anything else you want to talk about, feel free to send me a DM or leave me a comment on things that you want to talk about. Which leads me to, why did I start this? Like I said, I struggled, and in the struggle, I found a lot of healing and a lot of growth. And in finding that healing and growth, I found a passion for talking about this and realizing that it could truly change people's lives if we talk more about these kinds of things. And so to give you a little bit of a greater scope of who I am and what led me to today, I need to take you back to those 11 years ago. Now I have many stories to tell you guys of that time in my life. So just stay tuned. Don't worry. There's going to be more than one embarrassing, cringy story of mine that I'm going to willingly choose to share publicly. But I wouldn't do it if I didn't think that these stories couldn't truly help somebody and make somebody feel a little less alone. And that, we're all idiots, we've all fucked up. So here are some ways that I have fucked up. So when I was 16, I deeply struggled. And I don't know if the word accidentally is the right choice of words, but I kind of accidentally found myself in this deep, dark depression that I couldn't find my way out of. And to be honest, I don't even know how I found myself that deep to begin with. And I wrote a couple notes over here of some of the reasons why I think I found myself in that place. Just at the time, I wasn't consciously aware of these things. These were all subconscious, acting on impulse things. But hindsight's 2020. So looking back in the rearview mirror, I'm able to see, hey, all of these things that you were doing led you to feeling shitty, and therefore you feeling shitty, led you to seek out these things based on impulse, and round you go. You seek the wrong thing, which makes you feel shitty. So you seek the wrong thing, which makes you feel shitty. So some of the things that made me feel so shitty in that time of my life, first and foremost, I had a bad group of friends. I did. If y'all are listening, I'm sure you had your own shit that you were going through. We were all teenagers. We were all idiots at that time. We were all deeply insecure at that time. So it's hard for me as a grown woman to look back and blame any of those people for what I was going through. But at the time, I absolutely felt like they were partially responsible for me feeling that way. They were a bad influence. They didn't care about me. I don't think they really even cared about themselves. I think they only really cared about their perception from the eyes of other people. And I can understand that. That's absolutely how I felt as well. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. All I knew was that attention, good or bad, from other people made me feel seen. Which brings me to my next point, which is low self-esteem. I had extremely low self-esteem, as do most teenagers. I think especially in the era of social media and the comparison of it all. How can you not have low self-esteem when you, as a 16-year-old, are looking at your body that looks different every day? It's ever changing and evolving at that age. And then you look, at some of these supermodels posting on Instagram and half of their shit's paid for anyways. And you think, why don't I look like that? Or even on the micro scale of you see somebody else at your school that developed different than you. Maybe they're thin with big ass titties, or, they've got a tiny waist and a huge ass, and you're thinking like, why do I look like a potato? I don't understand. So low self-esteem was definitely a driving factor of this chaos tornado that I ended up finding myself in. This next point's kind of funny. I craved drama. Again, I kind of mentioned this a moment ago of, attention, good or bad, it didn't matter. I felt seen, right? And so that drama, keeping things stirred up, kind of made me feel seen, made me feel important in a time where I did not feel important at all. I felt expendable to most people. This next point is kind of derived from the low self-esteem, which is I was boy crazy. I wanted attention from boys so bad, especially at that age. It's such like a sexually developmental age, and people are exploring with their bodies and getting attention from the opposite sex or whatever sex you're attracted to. And it's a very confusing, sexually charged time. And at the time that I went to high school, it was not cool to be thick. It had just kind of became cool, I guess, around my senior year. But I was really struggling sophomore, junior year. And at that time, it was not cool to be thick. I mean, it was cool to be thin. And I honestly, and again, in hindsight, I think a lot of that's because teenage boys in and of themselves are small. And so they don't really want a girl who's thick or a little bigger because it challenges their masculinity. Versus once I got older and I got into college and, I started interacting with true men, big burly men, they liked me being thick. They liked the little bit of curves, and it didn't challenge their masculinity in any way. So in hindsight, I do think that's what was happening there, but it didn't make me feel good at the time that I felt these boys didn't like me. And so therefore I again put myself into dangerous situations by seeking out attention from older men, who in hindsight are fucking creeps. Another thing that I did at that time was I used partying as a tool to feel better. Idiot. I think a lot of us have been there though, right? How many of us have been there where we have used partying to feel better, right? It's if I'm drunk, I'm not going to be thinking about whatever the hell is bothering me. So I'm just going to drink my sorrows away. So definitely not alone in that, but I was doing it at a very young age. Excessively at a young age, which was definitely dangerous. And so all that being said, I was investing in all of the things that were making me feel worse. I was investing in boys that didn't give a shit about me, so it made my self-esteem even worse. I was investing in partying and hanging out with people who were giving me attention, but again, didn't give a shit about me, made my self-esteem worse. I was investing in the drama. I enjoyed fighting with people, physically fighting with people. It made me feel strong. It made me feel big. I was investing in all of these things that were just perpetuating the problem. And again, we go back to that spiral of you make a bad choice that makes you feel like shit, and then you make another bad choice, makes you feel like shit, and down and down and down you go in this spiral. And eventually you look up and you realize you've hit a rock bottom because you've spent months and or years spiraling and investing in all of this bullshit that provided you temporary dopamine. It provided a temporary relief, but only prolonged this deep-seated sense of self-abandonment, this deep-seated sense of loneliness. And in hindsight, it's so easy for me to look back and be like, you idiot, what were you doing? But at the time, I didn't have that knowledge. I didn't have the tools and resources to know that, which again is why I'm here today. That's why we're all sitting here, is because more people need to know how do you undo that spiral? How can you come out of that cycle? What do you do to feel that internal sense of validation, this worthiness that comes from within? How do you do that? I want to help teach you how. I want to give you resources. I want to point you in the direction of other people that can teach you how. And as I started to heal, going to therapy, working on myself, I started to realize I'm not investing in the things that are going to make me feel good long term. I'm not investing in those things because it's really hard to invest in the thing that doesn't give you that immediate payoff. We come from a generation of such instant gratification, a like on the internet, a swipe on TikTok. We get that immediate burst of dopamine in our brain, and some of these things that you invest in that make you feel good long term, it takes a while. It takes a while before you start to see the results of it. There's a video from Will Smith, and I'll find it and I'll leave it in the description of this video so you can go check it out for yourself. It's one of my favorite videos of his, and he says, you have to forego immediate gratification in exchange for long-term self-respect. You have to forego immediate pleasure in exchange for long-term self-respect. Quite profound, if you ask me. And 16-year-old Lydia was doing the exact opposite of that. I was foregoing self-respect for immediate gratification, for immediate attention, for whatever. I was seeking out immediate gratification at the expense of my self-worth, at the expense of what I felt about myself and how I felt going to bed every night. We cannot live like that. We cannot live like that, y'all. And so finally, I had one night that was worse than the rest. I had gone to another party, what I figured was just another party. It was actually a fairly chill party. There was only a couple of us there, and we were just going to get drunk and, have a ball. And, things did not go according to plan. Shocking. A teenager created a plan to drink in the middle of the night, and it didn't go well. Who could have foreseen that? And so, kind of long story short is I overserved. I got extremely sick. I started fighting with the family, and I had found myself in the middle of the street at 2 a.m. in nothing but my PJs and vomit. And I'm standing in the middle of the street in the middle of the fucking night, and I'm trying to come up with a plan B, right? Like, what the fuck should I do? Who should I call? Should I call my best friend? She's probably asleep because she's a good kid and she's not out making bad choices at 2 o'clock in the morning. Could I call this friend? They're probably drunk. Should I call this friend? They're probably with a guy. And my hands were kind of tied. And this is where, my parents deserve all of the accolades, is because they, as strict as they were and as many problems as I had with them as a teenager, they made me feel like I always had a safe place, no matter how fucking neurotic, insane, crazy, terrible choices I made. I had a home, and I had a home with them. And they never turned their backs on me. And in this moment at 2 o'clock in the morning, I turned to them, and I had nobody else to call. So I called my mom, and she picked up on the first fucking ring. You could hear her waking my dad up. I mean, they were in the car on their way to get me in a matter of seconds. And they got to me truly in the nick of time. There was a good chance that something really terrible could have happened to me that night, and they showed up just in the nick of time. I don't even know how they found me. They were asking me, where are you? And I'm in some random suburban neighborhood, right? It looks like every other fucking suburban neighborhood in the United States. So I'm I don't know. There's trees and I think there's a mailbox down there, So it's it looked like every other fucking neighborhood. But I mean, they found their way to me in a matter of moments. And I truly feel like it was God's intervention that he just took them right to me right before something truly terrible could have happened to me that evening. And thank God I'm here to talk about it. My parents loaded me up in that car, took me home. My mom got me in the tub and she was asking me, what's going on? There's something happening. And it was that night that I disclosed to them how truly unhappy I was and how I really didn't want to be here anymore, and this shit fucking sucks, and I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not seeing it. And they wasted no time. I mean, they got me in therapy the next day. So, again, shout out to my parents. My family literally saved my life. They really did. All three of you, Mom, Dad, and Andrea, all three of them truly saved my life. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I was not going to get emotional during this. Yeah, the three of them truly saved my life, and I wouldn't be here without them. So I love you guys. Yeah, and my family wasted no time. They got me into therapy the next day. And I didn't fight that at all. I deeply wanted to go talk to somebody because I knew, like, if you don't fix your shit, this is the end for you. So I wanted to go. And in going to therapy, that was really the beginning of the rest of my life. And I was able to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I was able to jump from my rock bottom and start spiraling in the opposite direction, spiraling upwards, and start making choices and changing my behavior and walking the life that I wanted to lead, and truly living as I wanted to be, being the example, if you will. And I never started that journey thinking, I'm going to make a podcast or I'm going to be on the internet giving advice about this shit. That was never even a thought in my mind. It was just a matter of survival. It was, I have to get better or I'm going to die. I have to get better. And it was in the getting better, it was in the recovering, that I realized how much I enjoy talking about this and how important this information is. And it was about it was about 5 or 6 years into my recovery journey that I decided to teach a class. And like I said in the beginning of this episode, I was an actor for a long time. I taught acting at a studio for a really long time. And I had brought this idea to the owner of the studio that I wanted to teach a class on mental strength. And it was specifically through the lens of the entertainment industry and what it means to be an actor in that industry, and the grit that you have to have, the resilience that you have to have, and the mindset to truly be successful in that industry. And, she was super supportive. She really thought it was a great idea. And so that's kind of how the idea was born at first, was me teaching this class at the studio. And I loved it. I loved every second of that project, from the creating of the class to the teaching of the class, the collaboration with my students. I mean, I really, really enjoyed that whole process. And I taught all age ranges. I taught anywhere from 8 to 40-year-olds. I think there actually might have been somebody even a little older than that in there. But point being, I taught all walks of life, because this information is not pigeonholed to one person. It is not just for one group of people. It's for everybody, and everybody needs to know this. Young, old, in between, everybody needs to know how to be emotionally resilient and mentally strong. And so I taught this class to these actors, really loved it, loved the whole experience, loved my class. If you were in that class and you're listening right now, hi, I think about y'all often. I love you guys. I hope you're well. And the class had ended, And I was feeling very lit up. I was feeling like my cup was full. I felt like, I did something. I feel good about that. And we were at a movie premiere for this movie that we had all worked on together. And I was walking the carpet at the time. And as I exited the carpet, there was a man standing off to the side, looking at me with this distraught, kind of almost heartbroken look on his face. And I thought like something serious had happened. So I go up to the man and ask if he's okay, if he needs any help. He asked me if I was Lydia Schock. I said, yes, I am. And he starts crying, just the softest tears, a single tear, if you will, down his face. And he said, I just have to thank you for your mental strength class. My daughter took it, and she's a completely different person today than when she started that class. We have a better relationship as a family. She's doing better in school. She feels better about herself and who she is. She has more confidence. She walks with her head higher. And I just have to say thank you for helping her with that. And it was in that moment that I realized how impactful this could be and how it truly changed that young girl's life and the trajectory of where she was going. She's now in college, and I hope she's doing so well. I keep up with her on social media, but who knows where her life would have led her if she didn't learn these skills of how to have that her own internal rhythm and that own internal beat of your drum and being so sure of who you are. And, that was kind of him watering this seed that I didn't even know was planted of this could really be something great. This could really be something special. And I started to think about how else could I get this information out there? What other forms, media forms could I use to get this information out there? And I spoke with some friends about it, and they suggested a podcast. And a podcast was something that I had definitely thought about, and kind of hearing other people who know me and love me also suggest this, again, was more water on this seed that was turning into a small plant. And like I said, that was 2021, and it is 2025 that you're listening to this. So what the fuck, Lydia? Why did it take me so fucking long? Fear. That's what took me so long, is fear. And I'm terrified, y'all. Like, this is some scary shit to put yourself out there on the internet, and not only to like put yourself out there, but like to tell some of the most like vulnerable and intimate stories of my life and my mistakes is so scary. Like, I'm still terrified to this day to do it. But, there's another saying, and I actually believe it was Will Smith. So I don't know, just shout out to Will Smith in this episode, I guess. But he says, everything you want in life is on the other side of fear. Everything you want. And I didn't want to reach, not even like, 70 or 80, but even to reach 40 or 50 and think I was so chicken shit that I didn't do what I really wanted to do. Like, I was so scared of, the internet and what other people were going to say, and, And, I've spent my whole life working on this internal rhythm, this internal drum where, I don't care what other people have to say about me, but yet I'm going to use the fear of that to inhibit this goal of mine. Fuck that. Fuck that. I'm not doing it. And so, yeah, I sat on this and I thought about it for many years, letting fear hold me back. And ultimately, the reason I decided to start now was because earlier this year, I lost somebody that I cared about. And unfortunately, they weren't the first person that I cared about who lost their battle to mental health. And something in me said, enough, Lydia. Enough. People need help. People you love need help. People you don't know need help. And this information is too valuable and too important to sit on because of fear of some loser who doesn't get it. Because the people that get it, they are my audience. You listening to this, understanding my heart and understanding where I'm coming from, you are my audience. And those people who don't get it, they don't get it. And this show isn't for you. I suggest trying another one. It's not for you, and that's okay. But I refused to let another person that I care about lose their battle in the night without at least attempting to help. So with that being said, episode 1 of Someone Should Know is dedicated to all of those beautiful souls that lost their battle to mental health. You are not forgotten. Your battle mattered. You matter. And even though you're gone, you are still deeply loved and deeply remembered. This episode is for you. This show is for you. You've probably clocked the name of this episode. And if you know anything about me, you know that my all-time favorite movie is The Dark Knight. And in that film, they say the iconic line that is the name of this episode, which is "The night is darkest just before the dawn." And I chose that to be the title of this episode because, first of all, it just seemed very kismet to have a Dark Knight reference as the name of the first episode of my podcast. Again, if you know anything about me, you know that's very on brand. But also, that sentiment is so true. It's so true. The night is darkest just before the dawn. In that you almost have to hit rock bottom sometimes. And although rock bottom is a scary ass place, I found there to be a lot of hope at rock bottom. So there's nowhere to go but up. And there's a lot of hope in that. So if you are at your rock bottom, if you are at your darkest night, if you are in the longest, darkest season you've encountered yet, and you're looking for a sign to keep going, this is it. This is it. The dawn is coming. The light at the end of the tunnel is coming. Spring is coming. But you have to keep going in order to get there. If you stop now, you stop in a dark tunnel. You stop at the bottom. You stop in winter. But if you keep going, I can't tell you how long to keep going for. I can't tell you how long it's going to take you to see the light, but I can tell you if you keep going, you'll find it. You will. The night is darkest just before the dawn, and I hope you wait around for dawn. There's truly nothing like a sunrise. That is it for episode 1 of Someone Should Know. Thank you all for tuning in and giving me your time today. I did want to shout out my family and friends. Thank you all for the support. You know who you are. I deeply love you. Thank you for everything. Tune back in to Someone Should Know every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. See you then. We did it! Episode 1! It's done! Oh my god! For real? Stop. I'm gonna cry again.